Okay, here's Maya creating a new scene. So yesterday's challenge was too easy. Boy, my screen is so low res compared to the ones at TAP. I'm going to go to standard view. That doesn't help. Classic. Reset. Where's the reset? Reset. Excuse me. Got a little phlegm. Actually, I don't like that because I don't want the timeline there. Or maybe I do. But something was crowding up that space. I'm still not good enough to use expert. Can you believe that? What's up with that? Let's see, we're on a new scene. Let's do this right. Let's set our project. Let's call it a new project. So for the class peeps, this should say, all right, let's go new first. Hold on, before I start doing that. I'm going to call this lesson 2 Wineglass. I think we're ready to do some real modeling and textures. Not even textures, just raw material, but it's going to look real, and that's what's important. So, sorry, I still got something in my throat. So for the class peeps, this should be the D drive, and it should say Maya, and then it should say projects. Basically, if it's just the D drive and that part. I'm not going to delete this because I actually need that. I'm going to accept this, and then I'm going to set my project, and I don't know if it's going to work. For some reason it didn't work after the class, so why should I expect it to work now? I mean, I assume I'm supposed to select this directory, right? So I set it. So what if I go to save? What happens? Okay, so this time it's actually working. So there. So we're going to make a wine glass. What we should do then is find an image plane. I thought I had some. VR class? No. Somewhere in my documents there's a TAP something something. Or FIT? No. No, that's not it. Boy, there's a lot of stuff on my drive. Really? I thought I had a wine glass. Oh wow, that's a funny place to put it. I'm going to pull that out, put it in my documents. Boom. TAP Anim Resources. Boom. Let's see. I don't like it. I thought I had a better... Yeah, that's not so good either. I'm being kind of picky, I guess. I thought I had a really good... That's better. That's the best thing I've seen. Alright, I think I'm going to do the tall wine glass. So, the problem with this image is that we don't actually know the scale. So I'm going to say this glass is maybe 8 inches tall. 8 to 10 inches tall. I don't know if it can be that big. It looks like a big wine glass, right? Let's just stick with 8. And that's kind of the nice thing about this image is it's the same from the front and side views. Actually, it doesn't even matter because we're going to use the Revolve tool. So I'm not even going to edit it. But what I'm going to do is copy this. And since we've made this project area, and I made the project on my documents, Maya projects. Well, what do you know? Where is it? Wineglass. Now where I want to put this image is in the source images folder. I think it was this one. So I'm gonna right click, I'm gonna, actually no, this is, okay, so this is on a Mac. I'm just gonna copy it over, but when I drag it, it's gonna want to move it. So I'm gonna hold down the Option key to copy it. It's some other key on Windows, I think. I'm sure. Oh, then that also means I'm going to need to provide this to the class. So I'm going to have to remember that somehow. So it's in there. So now when I go and I want to go into quad view, this is quad view over here. But you know what? I also want to show you guys the shortcuts. So let's get rid of the outline. I'm going to click on that. It's off into the side there. How can I get this out of the way? How about just drag it? So if I slap the spacebar, when my mouse is in this pane here and I slap the spacebar, it goes to this quad view. And I'm going to go to the front view. And I'm going to say View, Image Plane, Import Image. I'm going to double click on this cross section. There it is. And now I'm going to slap the spacebar over here. So we're in our front view. And I'm going to use the manipulators. Gee, you know, I just realized there's a way to get the keys to show up when I press them. Because this is the W key, you know, to get this manipulator. There's E for the rotate, R for the zoom, right? Back to W. But I don't want to have to keep repeating that, you know what I mean? So, okay, I'm holding the Option key and I'm going to use the middle mouse. And just kind of scoping it out. Because I'm looking, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 centimeters. How big did I say I thought that would be? Did I say 8? Or was I talking inches? Oh no, I was talking about inches. What is that in centimeters? Oh wait, was I talking in inches? Because I'm looking at my, I'm actually measuring a smaller wine glass. It's 6 inches tall. I don't know how to compare 6 inches to how to convert that to centimeters, but maybe there's something like 2 centimeters to an inch. I thought I had another tape measure around here, but it doesn't matter. Let's say 6, 12. Might as well say it's 12 centimeters. So I'm going to bring that up first, line that up. So I'm kind of pretending that I don't see these because I don't care about them. And this guy is sort of centered. And it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think I said 12. So I think I want to double the size of this image. I could just, oh, there it is. I was looking for the transforms over here. So I'm just going to hit 2, boom. Now back out a bit, bring it up, bring it over, and done. So I have my image plane and I am happy about that. It's lined up with the bottom, with the dark line here, which is the axis. This is the x-axis line. This is the y-axis line. And so it's centered. It's scaled correctly if I'm talking about 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, I could have numbers. Let's go with numbers. Why am I counting these things? How do I get numbers? Show me orthographic grid numbers along the edge, maybe on the axis. I don't see them. Oh, I see some. Perspective grid numbers. Okay, so the problem is it doesn't show you numbers on the centimeters. That's a little bit sad, but I'm gonna be fine. I'm gonna be fine. Okay, I'll show you another thing. There is a thing, more power tools. Here we go, mesh tools. It shouldn't be a mesh tool. It should be something weird. A measure tool, distance tool. So if I hit F, it's going to frame up on it because I seem to have lost it. So I think my image plane is in the way. I'm going to go to perspective window, so I'm going to slap that thing. This is funny, I can't find my distance tool. I thought that it created it when I asked for it. I thought it would be there. Or maybe it's just actually a tool that you're supposed to use. So this, I clicked over here sort of subconsciously without talking, because that means that was the last tool that I used. And I think it was deactivated when I started slapping the spacebar. But maybe I'm wrong. Let's see what happens if I left click. Does it say here? Distance tool, click to pick point to measure distance from. Boom. Click to pick point to measure distance to. Look at that, 13. And now if I use the manipulator, the W manipulator, so I can select these. These are called locators. Now you can actually see 12 inches, 12 centimeters. So I'm going to make this thing 13 centimeters tall. That's just fine with me. My distance tool's there. It doesn't have to be there. Actually, I don't want it there, so I'm going to go to the outliner. I'm going to see that I have these two locators, and I have the distance dimension. All three of these things are part of this whole measurement device. So I'm going to, they're selected. I'm going to hit delete. Boom, they're gone. So we've got image plane. We're in the front view. We have a glass. Now, there is one thing I want to show you, because I don't want to, when I'm clicking in this window here, keep selecting this image plane by accident, because I actually want to select other things that I'm going to be creating. So I'm going to go here into this channel box layer thing, and I'm going to, maybe I glossed over this during the class, but you have all these cool things in this area here by default. Model toolkit, attribute editor. Sometimes the attribute editor is detached, but the channel box is something I go to all the time, so that I can put in the translate, rotate, scale of objects, and usually you can do stuff down here that's really awesome. But it's actually a layer editor too, which is down here. So I'll hit plus here, and it becomes layers, and it's kind of like Photoshop. But there's nothing in this layer, so I'm going to right click, and oh, that's weird that I have that reminder popping up on my screen. So I'm going to add selected objects. Yes, I already returned that lens. Goodbye. And now if I turn visibility off, it's kind of like Photoshop, right? But you could also do this thing. You could go T, which is template, which shows you the wireframe view, and then R, which is just a render layer. But it's not just a render layer, it's a layer that you can't touch. So I'm clicking all over here, can't touch it. Can't move it by accident, can't scale it by accident, it's just locked. So, now I got my locked layer. The glass isn't exactly centered quite right, so even though this layer is locked, I'm going to select it over here, this image, and drag it around. Yeah, I guess it's not totally rotated right, but I don't need to be that precise. Alright, and I'm kind of bummed that my screen is so small. So anyway, there's my glass. This is what I'm going to teach you. I'm going to teach you how to make a nurbs wine glass. Now, everybody, if you haven't done this before, you got to pay attention. Because we're going to build a spline, a B-spline, or some kind of spline. We're going to build a curve. Create, we're going to go to curve tools, Now there's actually two curve tools that I use, CV and EP, but I don't really use EP. I use CV. And I pretty much only ever use the CV curve tool. I don't know what these are. I don't use these, but maybe you'll get used to them once you start playing around. I like CV. I think it's because I'm old school, so that's a thing. So I think, so I already selected the tool, right? And I haven't done anything yet, but I guess you could tell that the tool is active because it has this plus sign. And I'm gonna hold down Alt or Option, and I'm gonna middle mouse drag around because I think I want to start this curve down here. It's not actually that good of an image. I guess I'll just start my dot there, right? And I'm going to want this glass to come out sort of smooth, sort of out and then down. So I'm going to add, can I keep clicking? Yeah, I'm going to left, so I'm left mouse clicking, right? And I'm going to, and this is just because I have experience with this, with building curves. I'm going to add another dot here because that seems appropriate. And then now at this edge here, I'm going to put maybe 3 dots in there. And that helps to define this curvature here because it's a very small radius, if that makes sense. That's a funny way to talk, but that's how we talk in modeling. That the curvature is a small radius. And I'm going to keep adding spots, dots. So this feels like 3 dots would be good right here. Boom, 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 right? And now I should explain that, yeah. So by the way, you can hold down the mouse, or I mean the left mouse while you position it. Maybe another one up here. And I'm going a long stretch here because it's pretty straight line. And then I see some curvature, so I'm going to do that. Now I'm going to Alt or Option, middle mouse, drag it, add some more dots. And I can go back later and kind of clean them up. Now this is what I want you to notice, that when you make a CV curve, it's basically a NURBS B-spline or something. B-spline? It's not a B-spline. Oh, wait, it is a B-spline, sorry. That's what NURBS stands for. Non-uniform rational B-spline. Hold down Option. Let's do that. Oh, what I wanted to tell you was you see two things going on here. You see this curve being created, this white line over here, but actually it's like blue or something, dark thing over here. But you also see this weird like maroon reddish thing here, which kind of turns, I don't know, what is that, orange? And that's called a hull, and it's actually like kind of like a mathematical representation of what creates a NURBS curve. It's like this linear thing between the points that's being used to put an influence on this other thing, like some sort of rubbery pull. Like in the old days, a spline was actually a plank of wood, like a really thin piece of wood, and they would use these like sticks to sort of like shape the spline. It's kind of weird, and I think that's what this tool is based on. It's in Wikipedia. You should check it out. Okay, so I'm going up here. I'm going to make a really tiny thing. So the closer the points are, the more sharp curvature you could add. See how that's sort of influencing that? And I just learned this from experience that like I probably have the right number of control. So a CV is a control vertex, control vertices. So I can probably go through and do this once and have the right number or the optimum number of vertices. I'm going to hit enter to complete it. And there's your curve, right? And, you know, I could right click on this and go to control vertex so that these red pink dots pop up. And I could be really meticulous about where they are. So for instance, I want this to be exactly at the center line. To do that, I have to hold down the X key and it changes the icon. And then I'll drag this. So you see what it's doing as I move it? It's popping from one like centimeter line to another. So this is how I know it's on 0. It would have been at 1 if I kept dragging it over. And I'll hold down Alt or Option, go down here. I'll do the same here. I'm going to snap this point. First I have to hold down X and snap it. Now it's snapped. And I click out here just to get rid of it. So, I'm looking at these things. I want to move them around. Try to line them up with the reference image. I don't know if I like that thing being so rounded. Maybe that should actually come all the way down. Alright, and I'm just left click dragging, by the way. These lines look alright. And by the way, I'm being careful to click on these manipulators, but you don't have to. You could just middle mouse drag out here, which is my preference. I just didn't want to get too confusing doing things the fast way, but that's what I'm doing now. And I guess I got a runny nose. Sorry about that, that's gross. This is what happens when you record in real time. And that looks okay. I don't really need to be this meticulous, but maybe it'll make the glass look better if it's really accurate. And I like the sound of that. I just hope I got the scale right, 12 centimeters. Okay, and then I'm going to drag this one kind of out here. Now I'm pretty happy with this. So let's do this. I'm going to hit Q. Actually, that doesn't do much. It went back to the select mode, but I wanted to get rid of these dots. So I'm just going to do this. I'm going to click between component and object mode. It just sort of does that. Maybe there's a better way to do that, but that's always been the way I did it for years and years and years. And then I'm going to slap the spacebar, go to perspective view, and check it out. I got a spline. And this is the part you've been waiting for. I'm going to revolve it. But maybe I'll show you one last thing. I'm going to hit W. And I'm going to show you that the pivot point, I guess. Yeah, that's what that is. Just because we used the tool and we didn't move anything anywhere, the pivot point's exactly at the origin. And it's at the pivot point that we're going to revolve around this thing. And obviously we're going to revolve around the y-axis. So we're already in the modeling menu set. I think that's the default. Go to surfaces. We're going to go to revolve. But I'm going to look at these options by clicking on that box. And it's revolving around the y-axis. It's using the pivot of the object, which is good. So if I had dragged that spline out here, it still would have revolved around the pivot, which is interesting. I think that's what that means. Should we test it? Let's just test it since I said it. I'm going to hit apply. See, it worked. Isn't that cool? And I'm going to hit Z to undo that. It's going to sweep between 0 and 360. That's a full rotation. So imagine if we reduced that, it would only be like a half of a glass. So I hit apply. Let's have a look. Hey, it's a half of a glass. Okay, I'm just playing around now. Let's stop playing. Let's finish this. Drag that up. I don't know what that is. Tolerance. Not sure why. 8 segments. I'm going to say that's okay. Curve range complete. Yeah, I think that's just saying let's use the whole curve. And then output geometry. I want nurbs. I like nurbs. I'm going to get nurbs. And then hit reply or revolve. And okay, I'm going to undo that, and I'll tell you why. Because I actually want this to be back at the origin. But I can't eyeball it, so I'm just going to... Oh, there's one of two things you could do. You could just type 0 over here, but that's too easy. Um, since I have this axis selected in the move manipulator, it's already constrained to this, so it'll be easier to snap it. I'm going to hold down X and then middle mouse it. Pop, pop, pop. See, it just pops. Pop, 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 pop. Back to the center. And then I'm going to... Oh, I don't want to do that. I'm going to go ahead and use Surfaces, Revolve, and there. Done. The end. Just kidding. Okay, so let's turn off the image plane from the channel box. We have a glass. So this is now a constructed glass. And I'm just going to use this as an opportunity to say you have construction history in the channel box, which means you can change how it was constructed. So you could change the end sweep. I'm going to select this, middle mouse drag down, and you'll see it like disappear. Bye-bye. But I want it back. You could change the degree. That's a really weird thing. I don't know why you would want to do that. So I'm going to go back to cubic. Sections, you can go up and down. More sections means it's kind of smoother. But it's a NURBS object, and NURBS objects are pretty smooth by default. They really should be infinitely smooth, honestly. But if you wanted more sections so that you can tweak it in a specific way, you would add those. What I mean is if you right click here and you go to control vertices, you know, there's not a lot of room to deform this. Like you can't add like a really sharp point there unless you had more subdivisions. So I'm going to undo that, just hitting Z. And I'm going to do that thing where you go and click around that because I like it. Back to normal like this. I'm going to hit Q, and now I'm back in selection mode. So that was construction history, just a little extra detail that I couldn't resist telling you about. And we want some materials. Let's do this. Let's create a plane, which is tiny, so I'm going to have to scale it up. And now I'm going to hold down the space bar. I'm going to assign a material. I'm going to assign a blend, right? And I'm going to change that blend, which is over here now, into standard surface, AI standard surface. That's an Alfred. It's not called Alfred. What's it called? Arnold. Sorry. And then apparently AB explained to me today that you could click on presets and just click a preset. I can't believe I didn't know that. So I like this a lot because I was going to have you download them. And I think this ground plane should be made out of clay. Who puts a wine glass on clay? Maybe it's plastic. Ugh, that sounds even worse. Why isn't there like a wood here? Because like you would put on a wood table, right? That's a mistake that they don't have wood. Or am I just not seeing it somehow? Oh, skin. Great. That's gross. Brushed metal. Yeah, fine. And I'll hit replace. And I don't know why that's a thing. It looks weird. What if I hit 7? It's going to go dark. Give me area light. Scale that sucker up. Too big. That's good. It's like a big umbrella. Move it over. Turn it so that it's facing the right direction. That line there, that's the direction of the area light. Another thing somebody showed me, I think it was AB, you could change it to a disc shape, which is kind of neat. So I'm going to do that. And it's still too dark, so intensity, Area light. Is it this one? Area light? No. Area light shape. Intensity. Try 1000. Well, in this view it looks good. So I'm going to keep it. Now I'm going to select the glass. I'm going to hold down the space bar, which brings up the hotbox, go to lighting shading, going to go to assign favorite material, which I'm going to say it's blend. And it's kind of cheating, but this is what we do when we're in the industry. We cheat at everything. AI, standard, surface, boom. Presets, glass, 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 glass. Replace, done. Still looks not good. And I guess that's because, well, I don't know what it's supposed to, how do you get it to look good in the view? Hardware texturing is on. Well, maybe sometimes Maya doesn't look as good as Arnold, right? I think we figured that out already. But there's something I wanted to do. I'll wait to tweak it. But maybe quickly run through this glass shader, right? Because that's what this is. Yeah. So this is the attribute editor. And it shows, since I selected glass, it shows like all the stuff that's associated with this glass. It has a surface, which is the name of the thing. The name is here. This is, I like to think of this as the transform, but I'm not sure if that's right. It's certainly the highest node, if we consider all of these to be nodes that are attached to this thing. So this thing is the shape node. And the shape node is pretty awesome. It kind of shows you all the information about the shape. That it's a NURB surface, it has tessellation and all this stuff. Of course, we had a Revolve, which was part of the construction history that you saw in the channel box. And we're back to the shader, and what I wanted to show you was it has this color, but the weight is turned down, so I guess it's really like dark, like black. It's got specular turned way up, so it's super shiny. And the specular color is also pretty bright. And it has zero roughness, so it's like the cleanest, most shiny surface. Like perfectly smooth to the point of it's polished, so that if it had roughness, it would look like it was somebody sanded it with sandpaper. This is the index of refraction. Now, you can Google the index of refraction of glass, and it'll show up as something like this. If you change this, then the refractive qualities of light will change, and it won't look like glass anymore. It may not be easy to see, but it's science, so science says so, and I hope we believe in science. We are scientists after all. Alright, transmission. Alright, this stuff looks like forget about. Let's keep scrolling. Let's look at advanced, because that's kind of interesting. Now there's some cool stuff here, which we're going to come back to. Caustics might come in handy. I haven't been able to really see a difference when I use exit to background, but we could play with that too later on. But I think the most important thing you're going to want to see is on that the revolved surface shape. Alright, so the shape node, we're back here. And I think I was over here before and I forgot that I was here for a reason. That reason is to go to the Arnold tab or thing, and it says opaque. So that's wrong. We shouldn't. So we put a glass shader on this thing, but in order for it to render like glass correctly, it has to be not opaque. But I want you to see what it looks like when it's set to opaque. And that's weird that my old render shows there, so I'm going to do IPR render to my current camera, maybe zoom up on it. Boy, it's dark or something. That's awful. That's really terrible. So, I think I need some sky. Is that a sky? That's a sky dome. Alright, now we have a sky dome. Okay, but you see how our glass doesn't really look like glass? So let's select the glass. Let's uncheck opaque, and I guess it's not IPR rendering. Oh, it was. Well, check that out. So something else is wrong with this shader. So let's check it out. Specular. I think it was transmission, but now I'm actually not sure. I should have checked something. So we're basically saying that light is passing through this thing, and that's kind of important. So let's see if we have transmission, and this is a cool thing, this color thing for the transmission, is that it's sort of like how light changes characteristics when it passes through a transparent material. And basically, it's a kind of, it's light being absorbed by the material as it's passing through it that's causing this. So when I was at Blue Sky, we called this absorption. And I really don't like the way it looks, actually. So let's play with the depth value. So sort of a little bit below. That's okay. And so, whoops, my computer's chugging a little. Let's go 1 to 1. Well, that's all right. Sorry about that. That was gross. Hey, that's looking actually really, really nice, if I may say so myself. I might even do this. Go to your view, go to your camera, select your camera, right? And this is a perspective camera. When we start getting more advanced, we're going to have our own camera or multiple cameras. I want to change the focal length to 50. So the other day when I brought in my camera, it had a 50 millimeter lens, but it had like the ability to, it was a zoom lens, so it could go, oh shoot, I'm hitting the wrong key, hold on. I wanted to hold down Alt and drag it just a bit. Maybe we should do a cool downward. Yeah, so a 50 millimeter lens is, some people say it's closer to how the human eye sees. It's like a very natural appearance. It's sort of on the generic side of portrait camera lenses. The flatter the lens, I think the more flattering it is, and that sounds like I'm joking, that flatter is flattering. Or maybe that's not true, because if you go too flat, then I think a person would look like really bizarre. All right, I'll have to rethink that. Well, 50 to 80 millimeter lenses look really nice. They look really pretty for portraits. And this is something I brought up during today's demo, that you have this very steppy thing going on. Even though through the glass looks smooth, because the renderer cheats and it tells you that the normal is very smooth. The actual geometry, like the silhouette of the geometry, can't be cheated. Because it's firing a ray at that pixel and it's going, oh, there's nothing there. Or it sees the floor. It doesn't see the glass. So this is where I would do this. I would select the glass. We're on the Arnold tab. Scroll down. Nope, I'm in the wrong place. Scrolling up to Tessellation. Enable Advanced Tessellation. Open up Advanced Tessellation. And these are the number of isoparms. I actually don't remember the definition of isoparm, but those lines you saw when I created this thing, and there were 8 of them, those are 8 isoparms. And you can have a ton of them. And this is the number of isoparms that get created. Huh. I don't actually know where they get created. Shoot. But I'm going to increase them to make it look better. Now that I think of it, I wonder if there's a better way to do this. I'm going to be rethinking this someday, but let's just do it. I'm just going to type in 8 for both of them because I don't know which one needs it more. And what I mean by I don't know which one needs it, there's a U direction and a V direction. So U could be the direction that's like around this thing, and V would be sort of like the following the shape of the curve. I don't know if that makes sense. You have to think of this thing unfolded as a sheet, and that sheet would have two dimensions, the U dimension and the V dimension. And that sheet got folded into this shape. It would make sense if you just think about how we constructed it, and we did that thing where we could like have it grow out this way until it completed itself. In fact, you could see the seam. It's this darker line here, and that's not just the curve that's there. It's actually a dark isoparm. Oh, that's an irregular shape in there, I think. Or is it because of the angle of the camera? Yeah, maybe it's the angle. Oh no, that looks a little wonky. So I'm gonna, oh, I haven't showed you how to do that. Hold down the thing, that's the space bar, hold it down, click in the middle. Now you can go to any of these views, and I want the front view, so I got it. And this shape here, oh. So the original curve is hard to select because there's all this other geometry there. So I need to like, oh boy, another tool to look at. This thing is selecting surfaces, and I'm going to disable it. So now I can't select a surface. Isn't that awesome? Oh, I don't know what that, oh, that's the sky dome. But I want to select the curve. Boom, I selected it. I can select it now because the surface isn't in the way. And it's really slow because it's also rendering while I move this thing. Oh no, where'd my curve go? So I could do this. I could go to show and isolate my selection and do that, view selected, boom. Now all we have is the curve. And I'm going to go back to front view because I accidentally switched. And yeah, look at this curve. I'm not sure that I like this shape. It looks a little irregular. So this part here, this bend feels unnatural. So I'm gonna bring that out. Just make it a little smoother. Maybe I want from here to that dot to be a little bit smoother. So if I kind of like average the two, a little smoothness there. Hold down Option. Like this dot I feel like could be a little higher. Alright, that's fine. And okay, what I'm doing, and I forgot to mention this, I'm rebuilding that glass because the relationship between the curve and the glass never changed. So I'm going to turn off my isolate selection so that you can see the glass again. I'm going to go back to my perspective camera, and whoops, I'm going to hold down Option, reframe this, and whoops, my render view parked itself there and I didn't want that. That doesn't seem right. I'm going to zoom out. So what's happening here, if you look at these two windows, oops, this is like cropped top and bottom, and this one's more square. That's just what happens. But in my render settings that are kind of set to default, it's a kind of a wide angle view, kind of like a cinematic 16:9 sort of view. So I'm gonna bring up from the view, so this is the view menu above this pane, which is the perspective pane. I'm going to find it under camera settings, show you the resolution gate, and boom, now you can sort of tell where the frame is, and that is nifty. Ooh, I'm starting to like this render. I like it, even though the background is completely plain, but I think that's beautiful. I mean, there's a weird distortion here. And that's the thing about glass, like, and maybe it should have imperfections, you know? I want to do something about this background, so I'm going to go back to the disks area here, and I think I have an HDRI image somewhere. HDRI image from another project. You know, I didn't really like this one, but I'm going to copy it. I have to hold down the Option key. So when I made my sky dome, I made it to have like some sort of generic thing, sky appearance. So I selected my sky dome, but the color automatically went to white. So I'm going to select that thingamajig. I'm going to go to File to create a file node, and in this file node, I'm going to select the name, find that HDR image, open that, and I think it's gonna, yeah, do that. That's kind of nifty, don't you think? So maybe I should bring a copy of HDRI and the outline of the glass. So that's pretty cool. You know what? I'm going to do one more thing. One more really awesome thing. Really, really awesome. So if I select this glass, I'm going to hit Q so that I don't accidentally move it around. It says distance from camera is 49.505. And that's awesome. So now I know how far away the glass is, right? And the reason this shows up here is because my heads-up display over here has object details. See, if I turn that off, hey, where'd they go? It's okay, they didn't go anywhere. They're right here. Okay, so we have a camera. We're going to select our camera, and the camera shows up in the channel box. But I'm going to hit Control A to bring up the attribute editor, and I'm going to scroll down past. We're going to scroll past depth of field because that's not what we need for some reason. No, there's an Arnold little triangle thingy. And keep scrolling down, and there's an enabled DOF, which is depth of field. Now our focus distance, which I already forgot, now I have to click that. It's 49.505, so now I'm going to hit Z to undo that click. And I'm going to put focus distance 49.505, I think. And then aperture size. Ooh. This is where I was supposed to do math. And I had it written down. And I think it's 1.25. Okay. Now, I'm going to find my notebook. I can't find it. Maybe it's in my phone. Yeah, I think it is. So the f-stop that I showed you on my camera was f2.8, or the f number, I think it's, anyway, it was 2.8. Now that 2.8 on a 50 millimeter lens, so 50 millimeters is 5 centimeters divided by the f number, which was 2.8, becomes the aperture size. So that means I got it wrong. So what's 5 divided by 2.8? I'm actually bringing up a calculator. And that is 1.785. So I'm going to go here. Actually, look at that. That looks really cool. 1.785 will give us a aperture of f2.8 with our focus distance, which is the distance from the camera to the glass. So we have the correct aperture size. We could even set aperture blades, but I don't think that's going to affect it. But if there was a cool background blur with bright spots, the number of blades would give you cool hexagonal shapes or something. It depends on the number of blades. I'm just going to type in a number. I don't really know what the rest of that stuff is. But that's what I wanted to show you. It's because my camera has a 50mm lens focal length. Wait a second. That means that these are millimeters, while these numbers here, these are centimeters. It is what it is, and I can live with that. We should Google that to make sure. I don't know if it's Googleable. I'm just waiting for this render to finish. Okay, there's one more thing that I want to show you because I didn't explain it today during class. So we're going to click on this button here. This is our render settings. Yeah, I did gloss over it during class today. In our render settings, we could set our file name prefix. No, I'm not going to touch that, just like I didn't touch it earlier today. But I am going to save my file as Wineglass tutorial. And it's going to tell me I'm in the student version. And we're going to render EXR, but you know what? I'm going to do PNG because I like PNG. And it's a single frame. It's all okay. It's all okay. We're going to check Arnold render. You know what? I'm just going to crank these up. 444. It'll look better. Oh, there's something I forgot to tell you. Alright, let's go back to 322. Keep it fast. You know, while I'm in here, I'm going to go to System. I'm going to set my bucket size smaller because it just renders a little bit. It just seems more interactive on this slow machine. I'm going to go to my threads and go -1 like I did in class. Now that's going to free up my CPU so I could just like move things around and stuff. I was going to show you one more thing. Yes, I certainly was. Well, I'm also waiting for this thing to finish. So I'm going to click this, even though it's not finished. It says keep image. So now it's actually stored a copy of this image over here. So I'm scrolling between them. So this is the old image. This is the one that's currently rendering. You can see it's kind of getting refined. It's probably impossible to see in this compressed video. But the reason I did that is I want to select the glass. It's not selected because I needed to re-enable surface selection. Boom. And why did I want to select that? I think I forgot to turn on Caustics. So I'm going to close my render settings. I'm going to go to my shape node, which it's already on. That's not where it is. So I'm going to click over to my standard surface shader. That's what that is. Ah, I could turn on Caustics. Boom. Really should have saved that image right before I clicked that. Now caustics should allow the light to pass through this thing, but there isn't really enough like impact from that light to see what it's doing, I don't think. Um, but to sort of appreciate it, that's why you A/B it between the old and new. And shoot, I don't see any difference. Okay. Well, it happens. If we had set up a really dark room with a really bright light, and we would see the light kind of passing through the object, it would make a slight difference. But the truth is, Arnold doesn't really render caustics. Caustics are that really beautiful, like, um, actually just think of a magnifying glass. When sunlight shines through it, it creates that really concentrated bright spot that can like burn. Um, that's the behavior of physical light passing through a refractive object and bends the light and then creates this really cool bright spot. But Arnold doesn't really render in a way that can collect that information in the right way to create that cool effect. And that's like a different kind of rendering. I mean, it's still ray tracing, but it's like a different part of it. Something that I don't fully understand. Um, you should look at some of the images in the Blue Sky book, because these images, these beautiful images of light passing through glass, are from like the 80s, and they're gorgeous. Um, and that's just what they do. So anyway, what I wanted to show you was, now that we have our tutorial saved, I'm going to save it again. Now that we have it saved and we have our render settings kind of set up, I'm not going to crank up the samples again. But what I'm trying to say is, you're going to want to render this thing and save it, and then, I don't know, email it to yourself, take it home, print it out, hang it on your fridge. So to do that, you want to click on this button, which is the render sequence. And if we had set it up to render multiple frames, it would just render frame after frame after frame. And it would save them where we told it to put them, which I could show you again. It's under render settings. Waiting for that to pop up. Oh yeah, so when you're actually rendering properly like this, it really clobbers the computer. So even though I clicked the render settings button, it's not going to open up. It'll probably pop open as soon as this frame is done, which I've got time. I'm going to sit here and wait for it. So I have to remember to bring in the outline of the wine glass and this HDR image, I think. Yeah, that's pretty sweet. So hopefully you didn't waste too much time listening to my voice. Hopefully you used a fast setting on YouTube. And then I probably sounded weird. That's okay. Okay, it's done rendering. I'm going to show you render settings again, because you want to look under common and you want to see this path. This is where it's saving your images. Documents, Maya projects. So I'm going to Command Tab over to, which is which? This one. Wineglass Images. There's my image. So you want to find your image and then pop it on your thumb drive so you could take it home and play with it. I'm going to double click that. Okay, I should have cranked up the settings because that is way too noisy. So I'm going to sign off, but I want you to know go to your Arnold render. I don't suggest cranking these up like crazy. The defaults were 322. I'm going to go 444. Maybe even crank up transmission samples. And I'm going to click that button again. Yeah. But I'm going to, before I click that button, I'm going to turn off this recording. So that's my Wineglass tutorial. Wait, what did I do when I clicked that? Where's my OBS? Hey, aren't I running OBS?